All right, man, the big one here. The Super Bowl of Divisional Round weekend. Baltimore Ravens at the Buffalo Bills. Might as well just throw a Roman numeral on this one. It is the Ravens, favored by 1.5 in Buffalo here. Don't know that there's going to be snow, but it's going to be cold. Snow on Saturday, but, lake effect. You never know when the lake's just going to sprinkle some snowflakes on the field. So be ready for anything. Ravens, Bills, over under 51.5 per FanDuel.
You never know when the lake's just going to affect.
Yeah.
There's going to be snow.
You just never know. It feels like an AFC championship game.
Yeah.
Kind of wish it was. Not going to lie.
I mean,
it feels special.
This kind of been the AFC for a few years now, right? Where there's too many good teams, and we get one or two of these matchups in the division round before the AFC championship game, which looks spectacular, and then the Super Bowl. We've had these really good games involving Cincinnati, involving Buffalo, and Baltimore is now one of those teams this year where the Bengals fell off. They didn't make it, but the Ravens have looked spectacular. Lamar's probably gonna win the MVP. If he doesn't, Josh Allen wins the MVP. It's a battle between those two contenders. Man, I think this game's going to be incredibly fun. Both quarterbacks are spectacular. There's a lot of help around them. I don't necessarily buy the narrative that's out there trying to sort of prop up Josh Allen's MVP case that he's just got no help around him. It's different, but he still has quite a lot of good players around him.
Yeah, I said this back when they matched up earlier in the season. Ravens won that 35-10, but they haven't played a whole lot. Allen versus Lamar has not happened often, and they've only played 4 times since 2019 when both were full-time starters. One playoff game in 2020, Bills won at 17-3 in the divisional round to go to the AFC Championship against the Chiefs. But we've seen Allen versus Mahomes. We've seen Bills Chiefs every single year, often twice. For the last 5 years. There was a stretch where we saw Bills Bengals quite a bit. Obviously, we see Ravens Bengals all the time. But this matchup has just been rare of those couple, of the Allen Lamar matchup here. We just haven't seen it as often. And I'll say this: the only team that's really slowed down the Ravens somewhat consistently is the Chiefs. And you could argue, Isaiah Likely's so close to scoring a touchdown, getting up to 27 points in week 1. Maybe they didn't slow him down all that much. They're the only team that's really slowed down the Ravens. The Ravens have knocked off every good team over the last couple of years. Every team that's been put in front of them, except the Chiefs. And they did it with the Bills in week 3, and they did it kind of handily. And I know there was a turning point in the game where the Bills are moving, they have a chance to come back, they run the trick play, Josh Allen gets strip sacked, and everybody's, they lost momentum, they lost this and that. But the Ravens controlled that game and looked unstoppable. And that's why last week I said, I'm a little concerned for Bills fans. I'm not saying they can't pull this off, but I think they're going to have a tough time stopping this Ravens offense.
Yeah, well, it starts with the run. I mean, this is what we said coming out of last week's game was, how do you stop this combination of Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, right? In the offseason, when they put those two together, we were like, this is a Madden franchise mode move that everyone has kind of been wanting to see for years. Like, what would happen if you took the best running back in the NFL and paired him with Lamar Jackson and the impact that we know he creates in the run game? It must be insane. And it is. I mean, Derrick Henry's been cooking this year. He was pretty close to knocking off 2,000 yards as well. And in the playoffs last week, it was as potent as it's ever been. And we were saying, look, this is not like they run these read option looks, and it's not the way it is with normal players running those things, because normal read option defense is just assignment football. Make sure you have each part of the option taken care of with a body. But that body has to tackle Derrick Henry or Lamar Jackson one-on-one. It's not as easy as all that. So you've got this Sophie's choice of which one do we want to focus on extra hard. And if we bring everybody down into the box and just try and completely stuff the run with weight of numbers, now you're leaving guys wide open and exposed on the back end. And Lamar Jackson is more than capable of delivering passes to those guys. So that's the first thing, is how does this Buffalo defense, which is fine against the run, but not great, like it's an average run defense as a unit this year, how do they do against what has been an unstoppable combination in recent weeks and was unstoppable when they played the first time around. Derrick Henry rushed for almost 200 yards that game. That's first question. How do they do against that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, pressure on the linebackers, Matt Milano, Dorian Williams, Terrell Bernard.
And that's a difference from the first time, right? Matt Milano is
Milano's
healthy.
back. Yeah, the Bills are healthier on defense than they were just down the stretch. They've gotten players back. Rasul Douglas on the outside. Christian Benford's played well all year, kind of holding it down. So they're closer to full strength. Certainly better than they were at the divisional round last year, if I remember correctly. Their whole defense was depleted again. They couldn't slow down Kansas City.
But Milano in particular is a potential difference maker in that dynamic of figuring out how to stop, Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry as a rushing axis.
Yeah, so I think that the matchup on that side of the ball, the Bills have a history of being, I'd say a little bit undersized up front. They like to play lighter boxes. They like to invite you to run the ball and try to stop the run with fewer bodies, and they're going to have to make adjustments up there. And then once you do that, Lamar Jackson can throw the ball down the field as effectively as anybody as well, and then scramble around and make plays, right? There's always an answer for the Ravens, and it almost, to me, comes down to like you have to force Lamar. To me, you want to force Lamar into the downfield throws, and because they're lower percentage for every quarterback. So that's your lower percentage option, and you hope he misses a couple of these.
Yeah, like the game plan almost has to be the reverse of what they normally do and what they, I guess, tried to do the first time around. Like, it's not that you necessarily want to force Lamar Jackson to the air because you think he can't do that. It's just because you can't, like, the Bills have that idea of, you bend, don't break in the run game. You give up some, but it's less efficient than passing, so you're generally better off doing that anyway. But the first time around, the Ravens rush for 8 yards per attempt. Like, that's not less efficient. That's more efficient than almost every passing game you're going to find ever. So when you're giving up 8 yards a clip to the combination of Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson, like, your defense is getting gashed. It might as well be inviting them to pass every down anyway. So you need to do something different because that's way too efficient. You need to be basically giving up half that on defense for that to be a sound strategy. So they almost have to flip the script and say, we need to try and completely shut down the run and force them to the air and hope that the variance bounces our way, or that we can, create a couple of turnovers or something with the ball in the air. You just can't repeat what you did the first time around, because that's a recipe for a comfortable day for Baltimore.
And that's what I'm saying from a matchup perspective, and going back to the last couple of years when the Ravens have had good teams put in front of them, they've generally knocked them off. And they're the one team where we sit there and we hype up these good games, and the Ravens are probably the most common team that took this good team and just destroyed them. Right? They did it to the Lions last year. They did it to the Dolphins when they were good. They did it to the Niners when the Niners looked like, and they ended up going to the Super Bowl, right? It looked like a future Super Bowl matchup, and they wrecked the Niners. They've done it to everybody except Kansas City. They did it to Buffalo earlier this year. So when the Ravens are on, man, they're so tough to stop. On the other side of the ball, the Bills can be just as good offensively, right? So I'm not all Ravens here. And the Josh Allen and the MVP conversation and all that stuff's all valid and it's all great. But this is actually the one year where I think less of Josh Allen has been needed. They've said, get rid of the ball quickly, get the ball into your playmakers' hands. You don't need to play superhuman as often this year, but it's the playoffs now. And it is time to break that glass in case of emergency.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I'm really interested in is the psychological aspect of a lot of this, right? We've got X's and O's. We have Joe Brady calling plays. The Bills have had a really balanced team. They can run it. They can throw short, throw deep, throw intermediate. They can QB run it. But the pressure aspect of both quarterbacks. Lamar played very much within himself last week, played a great game. He did the same thing last year against Houston. Gets into the AFC Championship, maybe tries to do a little bit too much last year. Week 1 against Kansas City, Lamar maybe tries to do a little bit too much. Allen has done a great job this year, playing within himself. But they've lost in the divisional round 3 straight years now. Buffalo lost to Kansas City, Cincinnati, Kansas City. A 4th straight loss in the divisional round. Does Allen, the psychological aspect of this, right? Like, does Allen try to do too much? Does Lamar try to do too much? I think whichever quarterback plays their game, so to speak, my generic analysis, whichever game stays within themselves but also kind of takes over, that's who wins this.
But I think that's the difference, is that Lamar probably doesn't need to take over. Like, he should have the advantage because you've got Derrick Henry. I don't know that Buffalo can stop that. Like, the whole offense for Baltimore is set up for Lamar to have a relatively comfortable game where he doesn't have to do too much. Buffalo, though, because of that, it feels like Josh Allen is going to have to play like one of those Superman Josh Allen games. And it's kind of interesting this season. Like, Buffalo's defense, the 10 points that the Bills scored against Baltimore the first game, that's the lowest point total they've had this year, right? It's the one game where Josh Allen has just done nothing.
And Houston.
Yeah.
Went 9 for 30.
Right. They've been in a couple of shootouts, right, where their defense has given up 40 points. And on both occasions, Josh Allen has also put up 40 points. 5 times this year, the Bills defense, or the Bills have allowed 25 or more points. And on 4 of those occasions, Josh Allen has put up at least 30 points. The one occasion where that didn't happen was the first game against the Ravens. So it's like, I think they need to go into this game thinking this is probably going to be one of those games where the defense gives up 30 plus. On all the other occasions where that's happened, Josh Allen has had to answer and been Superman and generally done it. And the one time that didn't happen was against Baltimore the first time around. So unfortunately for the Bills, I think that for them to have that kind of performance, Allen needs to have one of those games. I don't know that that's true for the Ravens.
Do you think we see a shootout? I mean, we get into a lot of these 2 MVP candidate games, and we just expect it's always going to look like that Kansas City Buffalo game in the divisional a couple years ago that went to overtime, the 13-second game. But like, I do believe what you're saying, right? There's, even if it starts slow, right? You get a little feeling out process, but like, you know, it builds to the crescendo of like, okay, now big plays need to happen, and we got 2 quarterbacks who could pull it off.
But the one thing that might help the Bills is it's mid-January in the weather, right? Very different from the first time around. And, that's going to, generally speaking, weather creates lower scoring games. It also helps you potentially say, let's just completely focus on, let's sell out against the run, right? Let's drop everybody in the box. Let's attack the run game. Let's really come after them, force them to the air, because the air is not a sure thing anymore. Like, it's going to be 15 degrees or whatever. It's cold as hell.
It affects the throw, the wind, the ability to catch.
Yeah.
Right? Everything's a little bit slower.
So Buffalo might be able to say, it's going to be cold. The weather is helping us. Let's really sell out against the run, force them to the pass. And then it becomes a low-scoring game where actually Lamar needs to take over as well and make some plays. And it just comes down to which one of the quarterbacks is able to make a few special plays, extending the play, scrambling around, finding an open guy, manipulating the defense, dumping the ball over the top to a guy, first down. If the weather is not a factor, or if the Bills defense is not able to do that, then I think that the Ravens are just going to run wild like they did the first time around, and it requires Josh Allen having an insane game to keep pace.
It is an interesting aspect. I see the wind isn't going to be a massive factor as of right now, but it is harder to throw the ball in the cold. And we know Josh Allen is cold proof, right? We already know that his arm plays, and he's done it before, and he could cut the wind or the cold, whatever it is. I'm not saying Lamar can't do it, but like we're saying, strategically, if you're going to increase variance or, take your chances, make him make, like I said with Pittsburgh, make him make 3 or 4 big-time throws. Make him hit those pinpoint throws down the field, whereas if he misses a couple of them, then you get them off the field. Maybe that is the best way to go if you're Buffalo. Completely sell out against the run, and it's not always as simple as that, by the way, right? Because the Ravens have enough trickeration and everything. You put 8 in the box, if one guy is out of position, one guy gets blocked, Lamar or Henry hits a crease, they're taking it to the house. Like, it's not as simple as, you just put 8 in the box and stop the run. Like, you're also kind of taking a chance there too with the speed and big playability that those 2 guys have.
You still need to make the plays. I mean, the benefit of the heavy box is you create more bodies in and around the guy that's difficult to stop. Yeah. So even if one guy is on his way to being run over, as long as he's doing it within proximity of somebody else that can reach out and grab hold, you're okay, right?
Or you're just making the offense say, okay, we don't want to run into that. We are going to throw. We're going to take the one-on-one on the outside, which is where you either get explosive plays or, you miss a couple. You have a couple incompletions at key times.
But as a high-level second-team all-IAFL safety back in the day.
Tell me about it.
I mean, I remember we played a team who had like a 250-pound running back who I basically couldn't stop. Like he's outweighs me by 70 pounds or whatever, right?
Yeah, so you're Damar Hamlin.
The best I could do in the
Derrick
open field was to tackle him where I hit him plus the 4 yards that he would fall over my prone corpse, right? And even that was a 50-50 proposition, whether I was actually going to keep hold of him or not. So after a while, I was like, look, you're on your own to the corners. I was like, dude, it's 0 from now on. I'm not in coverage anymore because I need to hit him close enough to the line so that I slow him down enough so that someone else can make the stop, right? Because if I hit him in and around the line of scrimmage, I would at least slow him down for long enough that the lineman could help, right? If that contact was taking place 7 yards downfield,
oh, you're dead.
There's like a 50-50 chance he's just running through my tackle and no one's getting to him anyway, right? So that's the benefit of the 8-man box, is that you're creating a lot tighter space where even if a guy's getting run over, someone else can help make the tackle.
Were you affected by body blows? Were you affected by that?
I mean, I was affected by...
You weren't willing to get in there and make a hit?
Oh, I was willing to try, but it just didn't go that well a lot of the time.
Yeah. Any other X's and O's discussion before we touch on what it means? Because there's a lot of what it means, right? Legacies and narratives and all that, because I want to touch on that a little bit. Anything other like from the mechanics of the game?
I do wonder if Baltimore's defense, now that they've moved Kyle Hamilton back to being free safety, middle of the field type of thing, either whether he's playing middle of the field free safety or in and around the line of scrimmage, either way, he actually attacks a lot of the things that the Bills like to do in the middle of the field. I wonder if Buffalo has the adjustment to be able to play the perimeter more. And actually now this is the Amari Cooper, Keon Coleman game, whereas a week ago it was all of the interior players, the tight ends, Curtis Samuel, Khalil Shakir, James Cook. Like, are they actually capable of doing this is the question since literally the offseason. Since the moment they traded away Stephon Diggs and didn't do that much to replace him, it's like, do they have this game in their bag? If they need to run the perimeter plays and play X ISO receiver down the sideline, is that still there, right? And we've seen plays where Josh Allen has like given Keon Coleman a chance to make those plays. We've seen games where Amari Cooper has made some of those. But is that on the table in the playoffs against Baltimore?
I mean, there's a lot of people in NFL media right now echoing the Brandon Stevens weakness of the Ravens, right? And the PFF grade matches that 55 PFF grade for Stevens. Everyone else in the secondary for the Ravens is, in the green or the blue. And that's part of the reason why I picked Amari Cooper in my prize picks lineup. And I go back to that Kansas City game. The big games where Josh Allen has to become the guy, that includes downfield throwing and running. When I say the guy, it just means fewer plays where it's just straight up Khalil Shakir, 5 yards, create after the catch. There's going to be more downfield throws and runs like the Kansas City game. 2 deep balls to Amari Cooper were a huge part of that game. Josh Allen, 4th and 2, super scramble that maybe sealed the MVP for him way back then. Those were huge plays. I think you're going to need those one-on-one wins on the outside against Baltimore, absolutely.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, let's go to what it means here. We talked a little bit last week about Lamar's playoff legacy, Josh Allen's as well. Did you know? You do, you NFL analyst here. The Bills haven't been to the AFC Championship since 2020. Because we talk about their epic games against Kansas City, but they haven't made it past the divisional round.
They've been the team that usually is in this game where it's like this is the championship game before the championship game, and they keep getting hosed by it.
This is their spot. So they lost again in the divisional. Kansas City, Cincinnati, Kansas City. Here they are again going up against Baltimore. And Baltimore, same aspect. Obviously, haven't made the Super Bowl in the Lamar era, made one AFC championship, and that was last year. Only scored 10 points against the Chiefs. 2 2018 quarterbacks, right? Class of 2018, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, both guys trying to get over that hump, get into a Super Bowl. The only non-Mahomes AFC quarterback to get to the Super Bowl in the last 5 years is Joe Burrow. So a lot on the line here, as we know.
Yeah, but in a funny way, the more Mahomes wraps it all up, kind of like Brady, the more they take a stranglehold on just he's in every Super Bowl. the more it kind of reflects well, actually, on the other guys that don't make it. Because you're no longer the one guy that's getting, like, nothing, you know? You're no longer the one guy that can't achieve anything. Like,
Yeah,
none
but
of
as
you
soon as
can.
Lamar gets one and Allen
Yeah.
doesn't, or vice versa.
Right. Like, if Joe Burrow had made a couple of them now, you know? And it's like, well, Burrow can get there, and Mahomes can get there. And, you know, now it's like, well, what's wrong with you? But now it's like, Mahomes is the only guy getting there. All of you guys are just the other ones. So, yeah, like... It's big for either legacy in terms of, look, Lamar hasn't generally played well in the postseason. That wasn't the case last week. So he's trying
Allen has
Yeah. So he's
but they still find a way to lose.
Allen's working from a more just sort of like overall existential point of view where he's actually played quite well in the playoffs a lot. It's just he still loses all the time, like 13 seconds. You know what I mean? So like, I don't know how it's affecting his legacy if he just keeps running up against this wall. Like, he's playing really well, and it's still not enough, but that's the reality of most teams when you are in a conference with Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs.
Yeah, it's such a fascinating dynamic here because it does feel like the Bills have, like, they were supposed to be kind of in transition the last couple of years, like, this year in particular.
Yeah.
But they weren't. I mean, they actually got better all around. The defense maybe took a slight step back, but they dealt with a lot of injuries again. But the offense is better rounded than it has been.
Like, ironically, I don't think a loss would damage either person's legacy in this game, unless they play terribly. Next week, though, might change it. Like, if whatever the loser is this week, their legacy might be affected by next week if the winner beats Kansas City and actually makes it to a Super Bowl. And then you become, well, Burrow made one, Lamar or Allen made one, and you're the guy that didn't. And now the legacy thing starts to look worse.
That was going to be my next question here. The team that gets through, so the team that loses here, you know, you're heartbroken, right? You're either the Ravens, who went from 1 seed AFC Championship last year to one of the best teams in the league again this year, and you're still not doing it. Bills, maybe in the best position they've been in years, and you're still not getting past the divisional round, and you got to go back and figure out how you get there. But the team that gets through and wins probably goes to Kansas City. Are you battle-hardened against this other great team and feel better about going to Kansas City? Or is it just, you know, Kansas City's got this, you know, Kansas City's playing the team that everybody wanted to play in the AFC in Houston. No offense to Houston.
Yeah.
But Kansas City's probably in the AFC Championship here. And whereas you're coming off this, you know, again, presumably hard-fought Sunday night game going into Kansas City the following week.
I think any of these three teams can win the Super Bowl. Like, I think any of these three teams can get through to a Super Bowl, win the AFC Championship game, and win. The other thing, I mean, projecting forward, that's not relevant for this game, but, like, one question coming out of this is going to be, how damaging was it physically?
Yeah.
Like, who lost players? How many injuries are coming out of this game? And obviously this is true for Kansas City as well, but, like, on the one hand, you're going to be battle-hardened against a really elite opponent. On the other hand, you had to go through a really elite opponent who may have done an incredible amount of damage to your team, and suddenly you're down 3 or 4 important players going to Kansas City. That could be a problem, but that's a problem for next week.
All right, man. Game looks awesome. It's going to be great. I'm looking forward to it. I don't want to pick either team. We got to pick somebody. Where are you going to go with this one? Baltimore by 1.5 here.
I'm going to go with the Ravens. I'm too affected, I think, by that first matchup, and you just talk it through, and I just don't see how, as absent significant help from the weather, I don't really see how the Bills stop Baltimore's offense.
It's funny because as we talk it through, I could see this picture where the Bills pull it off, and Allen does play superhuman and maybe outplays Lamar and Henry and, you know, the whole Ravens team. But I'm going to go Baltimore. I think I've stuck with this match. I do think it's a bad matchup for Buffalo's defense.
Right.
And of all those matchups, like, Buffalo can hang, but I'll take Baltimore. I think we'll see points, though. Might start slow, but I think we'll see a lot of points. So give me the Ravens. I don't have Harry's pick. I'll ask him later.